Sometimes life teaches the harshest lessons to those who think they control everything. And when tragedy strikes, they realize how powerless they really are. This is the story of an infamous HOA Karen, a woman known throughout her gated community for her sharp tongue, arrogant attitude, and relentless habit of humiliating her neighbors. She lived in what was considered one of the safest suburban neighborhoods, where everyone knew her name, but no one truly liked her. She would constantly file complaints about the smallest things. If someone's grass grew too tall, she would scream at them. If children made noise, she'd threaten to call security. If a car was parked too close to her driveway, she'd shout at the top of her lungs. People were tired of her, but since she was loud and unrelenting, most avoided confronting her. What no one expected was that the same Karen who believed she was untouchable would soon be shattered by her deepest fear. One ordinary morning, after yelling at a neighbor for parking too close to her driveway, she stormed back inside her house only to discover that her young son, her pride and joy, was nowhere to be found. At first, she assumed he was playing in the backyard, but after searching the entire house, panic began to rise. Then her phone rang. A deep, chilling voice on the other end said, "If you ever want to see your boy alive again, get the money ready. Don't even think about calling the cops or it'll end badly." The phone slipped from her hand as her world collapsed. For the first time, the woman who always threatened to call the police was terrified to even whisper their name. Hours crawled by like years as the kidnappers called again and again, their voices filled with mockery and threats. They demanded money, raising the pressure each time while Karen's sobs echoed through her home. Neighbors noticed something strange was happening. Some whispered, "She's probably making another scene," but soon realized this was different. This time, Karen was not screaming at others. She was broken. Torn between fear and desperation, she finally called the police, her voice shaking as she begged for help. At first, the officers were skeptical. After all, this was the woman who had wasted their time countless times over petty disputes. But when they reviewed the community's CCTV footage, their doubts vanished. On the screen, they saw Karen's son being lured toward a suspicious vehicle before it sped off. Karen collapsed in tears, clutching the evidence that her nightmare was real. She begged the police, "Please, save my boy. I'll do anything you want, just bring him back to me." Now the police knew they had little time. They devised a risky plan. Karen would deliver a bag of cash to the kidnappers while an undercover team waited nearby, ready to strike. But everyone knew one wrong move could cost the child's life. That night was the longest night of Karen's life. She sat awake, staring at her phone, praying it would ring with her son's voice instead of another cruel demand. Her neighbors, who had once despised her, now watched with pity. Some said quietly, "Maybe this is karma. Pride always falls," while others admitted, "No one deserves this, not even her." The entire neighborhood felt the tension. But for Karen, it was more than tension. It was a mother's hell. The morning of the drop-off arrived, and the entire neighborhood felt like it was holding its breath. Police cars were parked discreetly. Officers disguised as joggers and utility workers scattered throughout the area, radios crackling softly as they prepared for what could turn into either a rescue or a tragedy. Karen sat in her SUV, clutching the duffel bag stuffed with cash, her hands trembling so violently she could barely hold the steering wheel. The kidnappers had given her strict instructions: drive to a remote spot near the edge of town, park by an abandoned warehouse, and wait for further directions. Every mile she drove felt like a mile closer to the unknown, and tears blurred her vision as she whispered prayers under her breath. In her mind, every horrible scenario played out. What if they killed him already? What if this was a trap? What if the police couldn't act in time? Yet somewhere deep inside, the stubborn Karen who once bullied her neighbors clung to hope. Hope that her son would come running back into her arms. As she arrived at the warehouse, her phone buzzed again. The same distorted voice growled, "Leave. The money on the ground and step back. No tricks, Karen, or your boy won't see another sunrise." Her knees nearly gave out as she stepped out of the car, clutching the bag tightly, her heart pounding so loud it drowned out every sound around her. She placed the bag on the gravel and took a few shaky steps back, eyes darting into the shadows. From the darkness, a man emerged, face covered, gun glinting under the dim light. Karen froze, fighting the urge to scream. Just as he bent down to grab the bag, a signal flashed. This was it. In an instant, floodlights exploded to life, shouts echoed, and armed officers stormed the scene. Chaos erupted. The kidnapper bolted, shots rang in the distance, and Karen shrieked her son's name. Then, from the back of a van parked nearby, another officer yanked open the doors, and there he was, her son, tied but alive, his small eyes wide with fear until they fell on his mother. The sight ripped through Karen's soul. She sprinted toward him as officers cut the ropes, and the boy threw himself into her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. She dropped to her knees, clutching him so tightly it was as if she could fuse him back into her body. For the first time in her life, Karen had no words, only tears. The kidnappers were tackled and handcuffed, dragged away shouting curses, but Karen barely noticed. All she could see, all she could feel, was her son safe against her chest. The neighborhood buzzed with the news. By evening, the entire community knew what had happened. People who once rolled their eyes at Karen's constant drama now whispered, with sympathy. They had seen her scream, they had seen her rage, but they had never seen her cry like this, broken yet human. That night, as Karen returned home with her son under the protective escort of the police, she felt a strange silence in her heart. For years, she had thought power came from control, from intimidating others, from never backing down. But now, she understood that real strength was the desperate love of a mother, the teamwork of people who put aside grudges, and the bravery of those who ran toward danger to save a life. She sat on her porch with her son asleep in her arms, the flashing lights of police cars slowly fading into the night. For once, she didn't yell at anyone, didn't complain about a single thing. The neighbors watched quietly from their windows. Some shaken, some relieved, all of them changed in how they saw her. The Karen they had known would never be quite the same. Perhaps tomorrow she would still find reasons to argue. Perhaps her old habits would creep back, but tonight she was just a mother who had almost lost everything. And in that moment, even the people who disliked her most silently admitted, no one deserved what she went through. Sometimes the world doesn't break you to punish you, but to teach you. For Karen, the lesson was carved deep. Family over pride, love over control, and humility over arrogance. It was a story the whole neighborhood would remember for years. The night their infamous HOA, Karen faced her reckoning, and for once, instead of being the loudest voice, she was simply a mother whispering thank yous into the dark.